Good morning. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to Connection. Coming to you today from Pastor DE and Brandy's home. Welcome, welcome. We're going to begin as always with our morning blessing. Spirit of truth, we give thanks today for our connection in this time of togetherness, for our sameness as well as our contrasts, and for the light we reflect to one another and see in one another. We give thanks for the holy that holds us and for the humanity that always brings us back to the holy. We ask that our happiness, our peace, and our joy now be woven into the fabric of the world around us and that it serve as nourishment to feed the heart of the collective. In the name and nature of the Christ, amen, and so it is. All right, on to our quotes. The first one is by a man named Kyle Cease, who we will be hearing from a good bit a little later on. He says, "Your stress is the argument with what you know you need to do." In other words, he's saying stress comes from when your inner self, your higher self, is telling you you need to do something, but you're arguing with it and you don't do it. That's what causes stress in your life. Okay, next. I see you on the days you move mountains. I see you on the days you don't get out of bed. Whichever day it is today, you are beautiful, strong, and brave. I just wanted you to know. Stephanie Bennett Henry. I love that one. Okay, next, this one's from Thich Nhat Hanh. If you are filled with anger, you create more suffering for yourself than for the other person. So try to bring peace to yourself first. When you are calm, when you are lucid, you will see that the other person is a victim of confusion, of hate, of violence transmitted by society, by parents, by friends, by the environment. When you are able to see that, your anger is no longer there. Okay, next. I release the need for power, control, or domination. I have no time or need for them. I am courageous in my desire to give love, to seek love, and to be love. I pursue peace relentlessly for myself and for the world. Together, we are beautiful. We are peace. Tony Carmine Salerno. I love that one. It fits right in with what our theme at the church has been all year, pursuing peace. It says it right there at the end. I pursue peace relentlessly for myself and for the world. Together we are beautiful. We are peace. Amen to that. Well, before we get started with the teaching today, I have some exciting news. In just a few weeks, the first Tuesday of 2023, January 3rd, we are going to open up Connection, open it back up for those of you who want to come and be in person at the church. I was going to say be in person here, but I'm not at the church today. But January 3rd, mark it on your calendars, first Tuesday in 2023, we will be back in the fellowship hall for those of you who want to come. For those of you who would still like to stay at home, of course, we'll still be streaming virtually. But if you want to come, I'm so excited about getting to see you all face to face. And we will also have a meal that day at the end. I think that Pastor DE and maybe my mom are going to get together and cook for us. So I'm excited about that. So yay, January 3rd, 2023, be there or be square. Okay, now on to, that was such an old school. On to what I have for you today, which will probably be one of the shortest teachings I have ever done. But when I found myself struggling with it last night, just trying to find stuff to make it longer, I was reminded of something that happened to me when I was in college. I had a certain professor, and he asked us to write a 20-page paper on this topic, but I knew already that was not a topic that merited that many pages. And so I asked him, I said, hey, if I say everything I need to say about this, but I still cover it thoroughly in less than 20 pages, are you going to count off? And he just replied to me very abruptly, 20 pages is the assignment. But I could tell that was just an arbitrary number. He had no good reason for making it that. It wasn't based on anything except he just wanted to give us a long assignment. So, as I was writing, after about 12 pages, I had run out of things to say. So, at the top of the next page, I just wrote in, "This is where the BS starts." And then I just filled the rest of the 20 pages with re-saying the same things I had said in a different way. And actually, when I turned it in, he thought it was funny and wrote me a little note, and he did not take any points off my grade for it. But that's a good lesson to learn in life. Know when to leave the stage, okay? Once you start rambling just to fill time, it just gets awkward for everyone. So I've got a short message for you today and it's one of those concepts that's easy to understand, but it's not always easy to carry out in real life. It makes so much sense on paper, but when it comes down to putting it into practice, a lot of people run into difficulties. So I want to start with a statement that I heard someone say in a video where they were actually talking about ways to keep ourselves physically healthy, which is not what we're going to talk about today, but it is a good starting premise. The statement is, "The germ is nothing. The terrain is everything." And by that, he meant that the terrain of our body, how strong our immune system is, and the relative level of our general health is what determines how our system will respond to and handle a germ or a pathogen. When some new virus or disease comes along, the medical and scientific communities spend a lot of time and energy on it, the thing itself that's coming at us. And that's their job. Things like that need to be studied. But there's another huge factor to be considered, and that is that the environment the germ or the pathogen or the illness encounters when it enters your body. We've all heard a lot about this, and that's been a big focus for the whole world these last few years. Everyone's been studying and focusing on the virus. And you hear this phrase a lot, that people, there's a lot of talk about people who have a compromised immune system. It affects those people differently than it does people who are in better health. That's just another way to say what I talk about all the time. That is, everything begins with you, okay? It's all inside. So when an issue arises, even if it's seemingly coming at you from the outside, that's not where you need to deal with it. You've got to go within and look inside yourself. That's the only place where you're going to find solutions. Okay, so we're going to talk today about how to demagnetize ourselves, because all of us have what Kyle Cease, who I'm going to read from in just a second, calls them these little hooks that are inside us that are like magnets, attracting certain people and situations into our lives according to what frequency we're tuned into, what level of vibration we're living on. So let's see what he has to say about it. He says, in old school spiritual teachings about self-help work, it's always about letting some external thing go. But that doesn't address whatever it is internally inside yourself that attracted that thing to you. In other words, it does you no good to let something go on the outside if something inside you is magnetized to it. The trigger is the thing that's inside you, not whatever the external thing is outside you. The codependency on that external thing is like a magnet inside, keeping you stuck to it. Usually, when we want to make some kind of change in our lives, our focus is on the external environment. We start looking for things and influences outside ourselves that we can change or make adjustments to. Our physical environment, our diet, our job, our relationships, our daily routine. But focusing on these things only distracts us from focusing on what's going on inside of us. Once something in your external world triggers something or brings something up to the surface in you, let it go. But don't stop there. Then it's time to look at and deal with or heal whatever it is that it brought up and triggered inside you. Letting go of the actual external thing, whether it's a person or a situation or a belief, is only half the job. Here's an example. When someone makes a statement that triggers you in some way, what most of us do is keep our focus on the person who said it or on the thing itself that was said, so that we never get to the root of what it is inside us that caused us to react or to feel about it the way we did. The roots are inside of you. Focusing on the external thing is like looking at the top of the tree, trying to diagnose what's wrong with the roots. You have to actually take a look at the roots if you want to resolve the issue. Continuing to focus on the outer issue rather than getting to the root causes you to stay in an unhealed pain loop. And if you fail to take a look at the magnet that's inside of you, attracting these external situations to you, you'll just replace this bad external thing with another external thing that's equally bad, because the magnet's still there inside you, continuing to attract the same kind of energy. It will just be housed in a different person or circumstance the next time. Okay, so remember, we talk about nothing ever leaves your life until it has taught you the lesson you need to learn. Back to Kyle. Once more, as simply put as is possible, the triggers inside your body within your consciousness are magnets. And unless you deal with them at the root level within yourself, you just keep attracting similar circumstances and similar people. You can't make new moves if you're still living in your old patterns. Letting go of the external thing is not enough. It only exposes the thing on the inside that needs to be dealt with. Now, how do we do this? Step one is identifying the magnets and realizing that's what they are. And they're not who you are. They're just learned behavior patterns. Identification with the magnet, believing that's who you are, is what keeps the external thing in place. So this is exactly what Eckhart Tolle teaches and what he's been talking about in the book that we're studying on Wednesday nights now, A New Earth, that once you identify with your mind, with your egoic behavior, and believe that's who you are headed down a road of trouble. So when you say things like, I have to get out of this situation, or I have to get over this person, who's the I? That's not really you. That's the magnet. Okay, so I want to break from the piece by Kyle Cease briefly now and give you a good example of what he's talking about by reading something I heard Andrew Martin say recently. So remember, we're talking about taking a look inside ourselves when we get triggered rather than continuing to focus on the external. So Andrew says about himself, eventually I had to realize that I was the only one still carrying my wound around. I would walk into a room, and if I saw a group of straight men, I immediately thought of them as the enemy. Now, if you don't know, Andrew Martin is a gay man. So what he's saying is that when he would walk into a room with a bunch of straight men, he would automatically view them as the enemy because of his learned behavior from past experiences. He said, immediately my victim mentality would emerge, and I was like, okay, here comes the homophobia. Here comes the bullying. Here comes the ignorance and the bigotry, even if it wasn't in the room. I was the one bringing it into the room. I was the one activating it where it didn't necessarily exist. So my question to you is, where are you still bringing your wound into the room and trying to make it everyone else's fault that you feel triggered, that you feel unsafe? Of course you feel unsafe. You're still walking around in the mindset that people are out to get you. You're still walking around in the mindset that everyone's a homophobe or a racist or a sexist. And I'm not saying that those things don't exist. What I'm saying is you have an opportunity in those situations to get really clear on where it is objectively actually happening and where you are subjectively still creating it because you haven't dealt with your own stuff. Wow. It takes a lot of courage to see that in yourself and to admit that the things inside you are often just as much a part of the problem as what's coming at you from the outside. So back to what Kyle Cease is saying, those particular external things wouldn't come at you in the first place if there wasn't a magnet inside of you attracting them to you. All right, so now we're going to return back to Kyle Cease. He says, the magnets inside of you represent your small self or lower self and its story. The only way to clean them up is to really get in touch with your true, authentic, higher self, which contains, is made of, and is connected to the all that is. And when you start to get in touch with that self, here's what it won't look and sound like. It won't be asking, what do I do? Now, here he's about to tell us how to fix it. The small I, or the lower self, doing something, taking some action, is not the answer. Let me give you an example. You wouldn't say, I have to make my heart beat now, or it's time for me to make my hair grow. These things just happen naturally and are taken care of by our higher self, that part of us that is divine and that creates. But we don't consciously do these things. So why do you think you, as in your small self, why do you think you, that self, is responsible for your healing? Is that the one thing you've decided God's not in charge of and needs your ego's help with? Because thinking you, again, your small self, can do it is your ego. The ego is constantly looking for problems to overcome. That's what keeps it, and the magnets, that's what keeps it, the ego, and the magnets alive. It creates a problem that it can then go in and do something to solve it, so it can look and feel like the hero. The ego never wants or needs God's help. Whew, again, that was a lot. It's like, to me, it's like I watched a series recently on television about a family that the mother had what this thing called Munchausen's syndrome by proxy, which is a real thing that unfortunately some women have, where they purposely make their children sick so that they can look like the hero and the martyr, and that they're always, that they have sacrificed everything to take care of their child so they can, and that's all that is ego. It's the same thing he's talking about. That's your small self, your ego, where when you let your ego be in charge, it's always creating these problems so that it can jump in and fix it and look like the hero. Okay, back to Kyle. Here's an easy example of this. Say you are an AM radio. That's all you're going to ever pick up, AM radio frequencies. You'll never be able to get FM or XM or Sirius, etc. But the problem is not with those frequencies. The problem is with the radio. You've got to upgrade from AM if you want to start being able to receive those higher frequencies. They are beyond the reach of the AM receiver. So that's what you must work on. Meditation helps with this because it allows you to listen and tune into frequencies higher than your mind and ego can understand on a mental level. Okay, time out. That, I think, is the beauty of the concept of speaking in tongues. Now, I know a lot of people who are in the New Thought direction think, oh, we don't do that anymore. We don't speak in tongues. I do. Because what that is it's something that takes you out of your mind. It's something that gets you to a level that is beyond your mental understanding. All right. So it also talks about in the Bible a peace that passes understanding. Your ego and your mind are always searching for something they can understand logically. Tuning into your higher self, though, through meditation, takes you beyond your mental understanding, and that's how you begin to clean up your magnets. Now, here's where he puts an interesting spin on this concept. He says, once you clean up or dissolve or demagnetize the magnets inside you, the person or job or circumstance, etc., that was the external trigger may stay in your life. You may not be required to let them go. You just won't be codependent on them anymore. I love that. I read something the other day that really resonated with me. It said, when I am healed and whole, which for our purposes today means when I have cleaned up my inner magnets that were created by my old egoic patterns, when I am healed, whole, and complete, I am able to see you as healed, whole, and complete. And then the end of the quote says this: we lack nothing alone, but are stronger together. When you can say that and truly mean it, then you know you have appropriately dealt with your codependency issues. When you can look at another person who you're in a relationship with and say, I don't lack anything. I don't lack anything when I'm alone. In other words, I don't need you to complete me, or I don't need you in order to be complete or whole, but I'm stronger when you're in my life. We're stronger together. Okay, back to Kyle. He's going back now to the example of being an AM radio. When we're stuck in our small self, in our egoic patterns, that's all the frequencies we're able to pick up. And he's about to tell us how we can go beyond that and what happens when we do. Meditation, he says, is listening beyond what we understand. And when we do this long enough, when we just focus on the stillness and not on the issue, we create the capacity to become the FM radio or the satellite radio, where we can start receiving and tuning in to those higher frequencies. And the more you meditate, the stronger your antenna becomes. In meditation, you will begin to hear God say, okay, I need you to let go of this. And the process of purging and clearing out all those magnets that have been keeping you stuck to the issues that trigger you begins to happen naturally. And when you let go of whatever it is you're being asked to let go of, whether it's a person or a situation, you're not only letting go of that, you're also letting go of that part of you that created it in the first place, or the pattern you created with that person, or as a result of that situation. Okay? So again, remember, you can let go of the magnet and that person could still remain in your life, or you could stay in the same situation. You just won't be codependent on them anymore. Your entire relationship with them moves to a different level. You can let go of an attachment to someone and stay married to them. You don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. All right, so isn't that wonderful? Sometimes it's not the person or the partner or the job that has to go. It's the old pattern you had with them. Once the nature of your relationship has changed from one of codependency to interdependence, it's an entirely new ballgame. All right, so back to our quote. We lack nothing alone, but we're stronger together. I want to end with a short quote from Esther Hicks that further explains an idea that we just got from Kyle Cease, that this process of demagnetizing ourselves is something we should let God handle. Our only job is to become aware of the magnets and then turn them over to God. Surrender. Let Him do the healing. And then, as Esther says here, the nature of our magnets will change and we'll start attracting different things in a whole different way. She says, motivation is negative stuff driving or pushing you forward, whereas inspiration is your true self, who you really are, gently calling you forward. Now, do you see the difference in that? You're still going forward, but this motivation of your ego believing, I got to do this, is pushing, is driving. So it's like the difference between somebody pushing you from behind or going in front of you and holding out their hand and say, come this way. Which one is easier? Which one would you rather do? You'd rather be called forward gently by your true higher self, not pushed by your fears and your old egoic patterns and your panic of, I got to get out of this situation, or I got to get away from this person. Your small self is not the one who gathers the power and then manipulates it in order to make things happen. Your action is not what brings you the things you want. Your only action should be getting yourself into the appropriate vibration to receive. It's the difference between feeling like you have to get out there and make things be the way you want them, and to be accomplishing the vibrational shift within yourself so that the law of attraction can bring your shifted self the things you want. Okay, so you see the difference in that? When you clean, when you surrender those magnets to God and they get cleaned up, you don't have to go out there and change any external circumstance. The action of changing yourself is what will bring different things to you. So, the next time you feel triggered, don't focus on the external cause. Look inside, find the magnet, become aware of it, surrender it to the God inside you, and allow it to be healed and cleaned up through the natural process that occurs when you spend time in meditation connecting with your higher self. And then watch as it begins to attract different things effortlessly. Amen? Amen. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. We will be here as always tomorrow night at 6:30 to continue our series of A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. And we will see you either in person or virtually on Sunday. Goodbye. I love you. Have a great week.